So basically the way I've done this in the past is I'm just gonna like upload the video to YouTube and then like cite the YouTube video as one of my sources. So if you're not comfortable with it being public, I can put it as unlisted, like whatever you're comfortable with, but I just
Can
need
I have a fake name?
I mean I was gonna put I was just gonna put Liz, but
Oh, that's fine. I'm just playing. When they're like, we changed their name for privacy.
oh yeah. I mean if you want you could use a fake name, but
Can I be Sam?
you could be Sam, but you'd have to change your name on the Zoom call.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'll be Liz. It's all good. There's so many Liz's out there with the exact issues that I had. Just kidding. There's like a Liz, but that's okay. I'm just playing.
I love that. All right. So my first question was let's start off with like name, age, pronouns, all that kind of stuff, and just tell the audience a little bit about you.
For sure. So hey guys, my name is Liz. I'm 21. My pronouns are she, they. I Yeah, I'm in school. I work with kids. But even though I am able to do some things normally, it's crazy because I'm like secretly autistic, moving in silence. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah, I love that you talk about it as if it's like a secret identity.
Oh, that's definitely what it is because anytime you open up about it or anything like that, like
Mhm.
people question you, even though it's like, no, like the whole idea is that you're not supposed to know.
Like they're everywhere, Like why do I have
Yeah,
to be special?
for sure.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like for you to come to terms with being autistic and like a little bit how you knew and how that made you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of like am still coming to terms with it because people don't really um like I think people's reactions when I've talked about it are not very encouraging. So for me it's still a struggle to even like say that I am autistic,
Mhm.
even though every single time I look into it in any sort of way, it's like that's what you are, like that's what you have. So I've had a lot of therapists like kind of suggest it to me, especially when I was like younger, like
Mhm.
meaning like high school, and I would get like offended. I would be like, no, that's not, I don't have that. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so I never like pursued a diagnosis, but like this year mostly, I've
Yeah.
just kind of been seeing a lot of things on like social media and TikTok of, people in my demographic, like adult, assigned female at birth people being like, yeah, like I have autism and I experience X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
So I've seen that and been like, shit, like I experience X, Y, and Z. And like all these professionals, like another psychiatrist I had this year was like, oh, do you have Asperger's? And I was like, first of all, we don't use that term, but like it kind of pushed me into looking at it, but I still am not professionally diagnosed.
Like I feel like regular psychiatrists can suggest it, but they can't explicitly tell you you have autism. So it's kind of misread as other things because you have to go to a special doctor for it.
Yeah, and it's like there's not really much that they do for you if you get diagnosed. They're just like, congratulations, you can't be in the military or like do other certain things or like you can't go to New Zealand. Like there's no like,
Really?
yeah, like saw something really
Bizarre.
upsetting. I might be wrong, but there are certain countries definitely that like if you have autism, they're less likely to like accept your request to move there. And like they were talking about the cons, I guess, of getting diagnosed if
Mhm.
you're like, and I don't even like the term high functioning, but like whatever it is, if you're like high mass,
If
it
it's not
really
to the
should be right.
point you can't do things on your own, it's easier just like kind of not get the diagnosis and not get the stigma.
Yeah, if I've been able to fly under the radar, but sometimes it's hurtful if I want to like talk about something that I experienced differently. Like I was hanging out with a friend yesterday and I feel really bad, but it was my partner and the friend and me, and we were like watching a show, and the show was so loud for me, and it was on like a projector, but I
Mhm.
felt like such an asshole the entire time that I was like, can you turn that down? Like it's bothering me. But like if I was able to be like, oh, I have this and I have a lot of sensory differences, like things are, I think I perceive them as louder than they are.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not normal to say that. So you kind of have to like pretend a lot of the time that it's not it's not hurting you, or things you don't perceive things differently. So
Yeah,
it would be helpful to have a diagnosis, because then you could just be like, oh, like I'm autistic. Like this shit is too loud, you know?
exactly. It's almost like you want to tell people why you have these different things, but don't want to use the word autism. It's just
That's literally it.
unprofessional.
No, that's literally it, because people will think about, and like so did I when people originally were like, oh, you might have this. I'm
Mhm.
thinking about, somebody in my family or somebody I know who is, has more needs, like they're nonverbal or whatever. So like my image of autism is like what everyone else's is, really like a boy, a young male, um, who likes puzzles or something like that. Like you don't really envision people of other genders or ages or whatever.
And it's like obviously that autistic kid's gonna grow up to be an autistic adult. You know, we don't just stop existing when we're 18.
Yeah, but even being like female presenting too, people just are like, you don't have the traits, you don't look like I think you should look,
Mhm.
or you're not even like as like, I don't know. I don't think people realize, like they say it's a spectrum, but I don't think they actually know what they're saying when they say that.
People say on the spectrum, but they don't really know what it means to be on the spectrum.
Yeah, or that it's a spectrum in terms of abilities, because they're
Yeah,
like, well, you're too normal to be autistic. And it's like, okay, that's what it means to
and
be a
have
spectrum.
jobs, and do well in school and have successful relationships.
Yeah, well, they expect you to not have any relationships at all, which is like, what could be further from the truth? Like, you're still a human being.
Exactly. Autistic people are people too.
Yeah, sorry if I like derailed your interview a bit.
I'm interviewing to hear your thoughts. I want you to talk.
Yeah, but if you have any specific questions, just let me know, because I don't want to like derail the whole thing.
Good, you're good. Like most of like this stuff is going to be pretty open ended, so it's
That's good.
were there any unique struggles that you faced because of being an autistic girl that like other girls didn't necessarily go through?
Oh my God, yes. I just am constantly questioning. I guess it's like performing femininity in general,
Mhm.
because even though I am like on the fence of like the non-binary thing going on, like I still want to be perceived as female, because most people view gender as two things. So it's like, if I'm going to be perceived as one of them, I'm closer to female, so let's do that. I
Yeah.
just have never felt natural performing femininity, and I feel like it's always been literally like a costume,
Mhm.
where I feel like other people who are born female might like pick up on the social cues that is femininity,
Mhm.
and they might not feel as like stupid or lost doing it. Like they kind of can just like tell what they're supposed to do, and I have a hard time with that.
That makes a lot of sense, and I feel like that definitely goes with like the overlap of like trans people in the autistic community because a lot of autistic people don't see gender the way neurotypical people do because
Yeah.
it's like so complex and the simplification doesn't really it's not really accurate to the worldview that like we have.
Yeah, well, if gender is just a list of rules, and my autism makes rules seem stupid to me,
Mhm.
gender falls apart really fast.
Exactly. No, that makes total perfect sense.
But that's about it for that. Just like not generally understanding,
Mhm.
or like picking up on like what other people feel naturally to do.
Something you wish people knew about or understood better about being autistic? Maybe autistic girls specifically?
Yeah. My major thing is that people need to shed their preconceived notion of what an autistic person looks like, kind of like what we were talking about before, because I feel like people look at me and they look for any reason to discount me being autistic. Like they're like, oh, well, you like put on makeup today, or like, oh, like you try to fit in a little bit. Like
Mhm.
they see the trying as evidence that you're not. And it's like, no, the trying is me trying to not. Like a lot of autistic people mask. I guess that too, like masking is such an understood thing, because it's literally trying to be perceived as normal and trying so hard out of survival and out of wanting to not be bullied or excluded or whatever. Like you learn from being a young person and being seen as different.
I just want to clarify for everyone in the audience who doesn't know what masking is. When an autistic person kind of pretends to be neurotypical and follows like the typical social rules as like a mechanism, and I feel like a lot of people don't really see it as that; they just kind of see it as lying, or they will
Yeah,
see you mask and be like, "Oh, you can't be autistic because I've seen you do this thing," even though it's exhausting, you know?
exactly. So it's like, yeah, performing social and other, I guess the word demands really works.
Hmm.
Like you're doing what they want, but it's not at the same rate of sustainability as somebody who's doing it naturally. Like for me, like I go home after a day of socializing with people and having to, really pay attention to how am I standing? How am I speaking? How am I moving? How do I not look, I don't want to use the word weird, but how to not have any red flags around these people that they flag me. By the way, Trick, have you seen the thing about how people can detect when others are autistic on a subconscious level? Have you seen that?
I think I have, like, where, like, like, even if you don't necessarily like, put the term autistic, you can kinda, like, be like, "Okay, this person is acting and thinking differently than me," you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's like a study, and I'm not sure like the validity of it. I could definitely
Mhm.
try to find it because it's been all over my like for you
Yeah,
page. But
if you find it, please send it to me. I'd love to include it in my,
I
like.
will, but it's actually crazy because it's like people, neurotypicals can detect autistic people not consciously, just something in their brain is like
Right.
that person is moving weirdly, that person is acting weirdly, that person is looking or behaving differently, and then they write them off essentially. Like they automatically dislike that person. And that makes me feel
Oh, I
so
definitely
like,
have seen that, like, where it's like, on average, autistic people are, like, seen as, like, strange or bad, like, subconsciously
yes,
thinking about it.
or like uncanny, and it's like so sad because it's like sorry that I move or interact in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, like that's like so sad. So yeah, masking, at least for me, is really trying to reduce the rate of detection. Like
Exactly.
I'm trying to like go under the radar. So yeah, I think with autism education and acceptance, if people understood that, just because somebody is able to complete daily tasks or like does their best pretending, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not struggling a lot under the surface or that they perceive the world differently than you.
I really appreciate that sentiment. I think that's really interesting, and I definitely agree with you. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, just thank you for interviewing me.
Sure.
I really appreciate this opportunity to talk a little bit about, something that I feel like people don't learn about enough. And I'm glad you're doing this work to, share our experiences with other people.
Definitely, of course. I feel like you have really good insights, and I'm really excited to share the final project with you.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
S-
Thank
s-
you so much, Trick. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Have a good one.